Welcome to the L3 Leadership Podcast. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I was just telling you before we jumped on, you have by far the coolest mic I've ever seen in podcasting history. So I'd love to learn where you get that, but welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And yes, this is my baby right here. So I'm super excited to be here and can't wait to get into it.
Yeah. And so to give people a little bit of context of what you're currently doing, because I want to go back through your leadership journey a little bit, but tell people where you are and what you do right now before we dive into that.
Well, I actually reside in Houston, Texas. However, I would say about 90% of my client base is spread out throughout the whole United States. So I work with everyone anywhere and, and all that. I help individuals who are authors, specifically speakers, coaches, those in the network marketing space who have written books or they're planning to write a book. I help them learn how to leverage their books to truly build a full-time income. And so that's with the sum of it all, what I do.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to dive into that as I am an aspiring author myself, and I know many of our listeners are as well. But let's just go back a little bit before where you are now. I believe you started your leadership journey really in network marketing. Is that correct?
Yeah. Absolutely. I wouldn't say necessarily I started my entrepreneurship journey in network marketing. If we even back up further than that, I have been a professional tripreneur. I joke about it all the time, but not only was I a professional tripreneur, but also a professional quitpreneur. So I would try something for 30 days and quit, try it and quit. I've sold knives, vacuum cleaners, door to door, telephone services. I used to work at MCI. And so I had always been, an aspiring entrepreneur, but never really had wrapped my hands around what I truly believe, leadership. And it was when I got into the industry of network marketing where, I was never wanting to do that because, that's one of those things. And I was blessed to be with some really cool leaders. And I mean, believe it or not, that's where I was able to have my first level of success. I earned six figures in one company. I was there for less than a year, but then I transitioned to another. And that's where I learned leadership. Okay. In fact, I think that's when I read my first book on the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership.
Come on. There it is.
Okay. So
my hero. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, in the space of network marketing, leadership is essential if you want to be able to build an organization. Honestly, I believe that's what any great company, regardless if it's in the multi-level marketing space or business, it is based on the leadership. And so I learned a lot through there, and I started my own coaching business around 2015. So left the industry of networking because I had written this book and I saw how it was helping me, and I wanted to help other people learn how to leverage theirs. And yeah, it's been an amazing and incredible journey.
Yeah, take me back to the tripreneur days, because we live in an era, everyone listens to Gary Vaynerchuk. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Now it's the cool thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
But you were a tripreneur. You said you tried over and over again. Did you ever want to throw in the towel, or is that something you couldn't do? And because I guess just speak to the person who is a tripreneur thinking they're an entrepreneur. Should they keep going no matter how many businesses until it sticks? Or do some people need to just call it quits sometime?
Well, you know what? What's so funny about that is I actually did give it up. Now, with today's world, it's even easier to be unfocused and be a tripreneur, because as soon as you go on Instagram, there's another coach or entrepreneur. I can show you how to make money. You just close your eyes, you get rich, right? And so it's like everybody's jumping into the space of entrepreneurship. What I will tell you is this: I do not believe that entrepreneurship is for everyone, but I believe that anyone that really stays focused with it, stays literally laser focused, you can have success. I quit. It was after doing all these different things, I have finally graduated with my degree in computer science. I am a little bit of a techie, i.e. the microphone. I mean,
I want that mic, yeah.
I've got so many gadgets behind the camera right now, you don't even know. But I ended up working a database, a fancy word for just data entry, but it was like database administrative. You had to have your degree in computer science. I have no clue why. And I was making about $27,000 a year, donating plasma twice a week so that I could make enough money to put gas in my car just to get to work. Like, isn't that crazy? Like, yeah. I was donating blood so I could get to a job that was barely paying my bills. And it wasn't until my father, who at this point of my life now was my superhero, my mom. My birth mom passed when I was 11 years old due to cirrhosis of the liver. And so now, and my father was a techie. And so now it's like, he's my everything. And he is now diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, the big C word. And I think in those 7 months of watching my father go through this journey was one of the most difficult things that I've ever experienced. But I really came to the realization that, okay, Taurea, it's time to stop playing around, stop making excuses, because that's what it was. It was always an excuse why it didn't work, or, maybe it's I'm going to wait till it's a better time, or, what. And then I got to the place where I just became complacent with being uncomfortable, because to me, uncomfortable meant I was not happy with the life that I was living. Right. And so when he passed away, that's when I made a decision. I was tired of just kind of letting the days go by and existing in this world. I really wanted to make some major impact. And I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I have not looked back since.
And was that the start of the network marketing journey at the same time?
Not necessarily. So what happened was, when I moved to Atlanta, I used to host like this local TV show in Virginia, right? I was kind of like a little celebrity.
Let's go.
And when I moved to Atlanta, I was like, you know what? We're going to take the show out there. So I'm going to interview people. It didn't quite work out that well, but I did end up landing this position with a party promoter in Atlanta, where I was doing his websites. So I had to learn how to do the website for the show, the TV show, because everybody was trying to charge way too much. It was like, I remember one person quoted me $500, and honey, back then, $500, he might as well said 50,000, because it wasn't much, right? So I learned how to do websites. And so I was doing his website. And then he introduced me to a young lady who was in the network marketing industry. Mind you, when I moved to Atlanta, I was going to do the show and I was going to do websites and stuff like that. But it was very difficult. I had found out that, like I was a struggling entrepreneur. It was like a lot of entrepreneurs in Atlanta who were on that level that I was meeting, and they didn't want to pay for websites. And so the only reason why, and I always look at every setback, or AKA failure, as a stepping stone, because let's imagine I would have made just maybe 30,000, a little bit more than what I was used to making on a career in doing websites, I may not be where I am today, because it was the fact that I was not having the success. I was open and willing to do something. And that's when I got in network marketing. And that was like, I was like, wow, I can't believe I never wanted to do this industry.
Yeah, and speak to that. Like, I would love to hear maybe one or two of the best leadership lessons that you learned being in a network marketing company. Because again, I know several people. I know a great friend was the top beach body coach for many, many years, and it is legit. And you can learn legit leadership concepts and principles, and it's incredible what you can do. What are some things that you learned?
Well, one thing I will tell you is that the person who stays excited the longest makes the most money. And so in network marketing, though, if you want your organization to be excited, then your excitement has to be through the roof. In fact, I remember one time we were at a conference, and we were the leader. I was a leader at this conference, and we got called into like a halftime meeting. Right, it was like a halftime meeting with our executive vice president of sales, and he was like, "Y'all need to turn y'all energy up," because it wasn't me though. He definitely was. And he was like, y'all need to turn your energy up, because everybody is watching you. And you do understand that the excitement of your organization is based upon the excitement that you give. People look to you to see if you're excited. Just like when we're on a plane and it's too much turbulence, we look at who? The flight attendants, right? We're like, women, if they're not nervous, then I'm going to be okay, right? Well, your organization looks at you the same exact way. You have to be excited about what you're doing. Another thing I will also say about leadership, I believe that as a leader, it is our responsibility to be laser focused in what it is that we're teaching and doing, but also our responsibility to continue to grow, right? So not only staying excited, but let's not be excited and ignorant. Let's be excited and growing at the same time. So investing in yourself, learning different things that you need to learn that you can apply, that your team can also do, because your team never does what you say do. They only do what you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so good. I have to ask just because he's been so influential in my life. You mentioned John Maxwell was your first
Yes.
book. Has John played a big influence in your life and journey? And if so, maybe what's one of the biggest things you've taken away from John's work?
Oh, come on. Absolutely. First of all, can I tell you, I had a chance to meet him recently.
Let's go. How was that?
Horrible. I fangirled out and said the dumbest thing ever. I think I was like, oh my God, I talk about you all the time. He was like, okay, come on, let's take a picture. What do you say to John C. Maxwell? Like, this is the man. Okay, so when it comes to my leadership, every single time, because you do know that in every level of growth, whether it's in a home-based business, your business, even in a career, whenever you have a new level of growth, there you have to develop yourself more. And so, like, as I was growing, I would have challenges with some of my team members. I mean, at the time I was younger than many of my team members. And so when I'm trying to give, some coaching or give some information or instruction, I'd have to learn how to say it the right way, right? Because it could cause friction. I mean, stuff as small as that, like, who do you think you're talking to? So I had to really dig deep into understanding leadership, understanding how to be able to effectively communicate with people. John C. Maxwell has definitely played a major role. I mean, and let's just be real, when it comes to even what I teach now, the man has branded himself on leadership. And so I always tell people, like, you can get wealthy in one specific niche. When you say his name, we know it's leadership. And he's written several books. I want to say over 100 plus books. Because every time he's talking, he's like, oh, my new book I'm working on. We're just like, Lord, right? So absolutely.
Yeah. This may be a little bit personal. I've listened to you on other podcasts, and I know, and I don't know if this was right after you lost your dad. I don't know the timing of this, but I know that you shared throughout your leadership journey, you had a dark period, a dark season, and it sounds like we have somewhat similar past. I lost my mom at a young age. I lost my mother-in-law 2 years later, and then I most recently, 3 years ago, lost my sister. So a lot of loss, and I went through the darkest season of my life 3 years ago, and thankfully God brought me through that season, and I learned a lot through it. And as I share with leaders now, what got me through that season, I have so many leaders come up to me and say, Doug, I either feel like I'm on the verge of going into that season, or I feel like I'm in the middle of it. And thank you so much. And so when I hear leaders who have also gone through, because that's one of the things that got me through, to be honest with you, when I heard other leaders that I admired and respected also had to go through hard times that were extremely difficult for them. When I heard that journey, that gave me hope that one day I could get on the other side of this. And so if you don't mind me asking, can you just share a little bit about that season if you're willing to, and maybe what you learned through it?
Absolutely. And I love sharing about it. I feel like it is also another responsibility, as a leader, to be real. Now, for some people, they might say, Taurea, you a little bit too real, but I'm technically just always being myself. So if you ever see me in the streets, it's never a different version. So you don't walk away and say, oh, I wasn't expecting that. No, I'm going to be this way. But,
I love it.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So in that moment, this was actually after I had been in network marketing, and I was now one of the top income earners. And it was like, stuff like situation after situation started happening, right? And so within a matter of just a few years, I had also lost a good girlfriend of mine to cancer. And if anybody knows anything about like the industry of multi-level marketing, you could get very, very kind of centered into the community. And like, if you ain't in the company, if you're not promoting this product, like we don't really communicate outside, which I never recommend anymore. Like, don't do that. Right. And so I isolated a lot of people. I was like, if you're not selling this coffee, I don't really have time to be around you. Right. And so I think about, I find out my girlfriend is sick and I wasn't there, because I was so busy building a business. And then I find out my grandmother is sick, and I'll never forget that. Well, let me tell you, this one, the straw broke the camel's back. But before then, I was in love, and come to find out, not only was I in love, but about 4 to 5 other women was in love with the same person. And then somebody in my organization was leaving. It was like, when I tell you, Doug, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, good Lord, I can't take anything else. And I remember one of the last things like where I was done was when my grandmother had gotten sick, and she would always be like, well, I guess I ain't gonna see you until this holiday or this holiday, because I'm always so busy building the business. And I remember talking to her. It was Thanksgiving. I said, Grandma, I'm not going to be able to come for Thanksgiving, but I promise I'll be there for Christmas. And it's just something about when people hit a certain age, it's like they just know, they know, they know. And she was like, well, I guess I won't see you ever again. And I was like, oh, Lord, here we go. Because, you know, she was at the age where it was like everything she talked about was like moving on to the next life. Yeah. And so I was like, Grandma, I'm going to see you. Just calm down. It'll be fine. So they call me to tell me, Taurea, now, mind you, after all this stuff is piling. So, of course, my organization is dropping. My income is dropping. And it's tough out here, right? And that's the thing about entrepreneurship. It's always going to be up, you know, ups and downs and ups and downs. So it's tough. And they said, Taurea, you need to get to South Carolina, which, by the way, is only 5 hours away. My car at the time, I can't drive it because it has to get fixed. And it's like $3,000 to fix it. I don't have the money. I don't have a credit card to rent a car. So now I'm trying to finagle some stuff so I can create like fake up-to-date light bills so I can rent a car with a bill. Like you could do that with Enterprise, but of course my light bill's behind. So I don't want them to see a behind bill. And so I'm trying to fix that. It's like everything. And I'm telling all these people, this is the number one lifestyle in the world. And as I went up to the car place to get the car the first time, they denied me for something. So I had to go back home and fix it. Went back up there the second time, finally got the car. As soon as I got the car, they called me and told me she had passed. Honey, I don't know if I've ever wept so hard because it was like, you do all of this and you work so hard and you put on this face of perfection. And the truth is nothing is perfect. And so, I went through it. And I share this story. This was the last conference I went to in the company, the network marketing company that I was in. And we had our conference. We would always do events at the MGM. Now, this particular year, I didn't even have money. Mind you, I'm one of the top leaders in the company. I didn't even have enough money to stay at the host hotel. So they had just opened up an SLS. And if you've ever been to LA, SLS is like the well-to-do hotel. But they just opened up this SLS in Las Vegas. You could tell it was like somebody else's hotel because it smelled like smoke. It was horrible, but it was super, super cheap. And ironically, there was a train that was connected to the MGM. So I was like, cool, let's stay there. And my sister stayed with me. This is my friend. She's been my friend forever. So we call each other sisters. And so I was in the hotel room that night and I was just like, this is ridiculous. And I'm out here lying to people. I'm out here telling people that this is the number one. And I'm secretly just like crumbling. I'm falling to nothing. And I just was ready to end it. So I was searching for different ways to make it happen. Okay. So I'm a computer science person, so I can solve a problem, but it's got to make it, I got to make it make sense. And I can laugh about this, but of course, when I was going through that, it was tough. And I remember searching all the different ways. I'm afraid of heights. Ironically, I like living in high rises, but I barely want to go on the patio because I get weak in the knees. So jumping off of something wouldn't work. And then guns, I don't really like guns. And so I saw you could take some pills. And they told me that was like, I saw it was like a 99% chance that it wouldn't work. And I was like, oh, Lord, so now people just gonna know that I'm crazy. And so at that moment, I prayed to God. And I said, look, if you're going to make me afraid, and this is the one time where I do say fear kept me. And I prayed to God and I said, listen, I got to know what I'm here for because this cannot be it. And when I came back home after that conference, I had did this video on YouTube where I was just sharing like how I overcame depression. And it was or not even overcame because I feel like it's always a continuous battle. But I had so many hits. Like I had to turn my phone off that day. But that day moving forward, I made a decision that I was not going to be out here just putting on a face. I wasn't going to make it look cute for the gram. I'm going to be myself. And this is the happiest that I have ever been, just being able to be me. So.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that story. I think it's just so important for leaders to hear that if they're going through a tough time, they're not alone. Everyone goes through this. And again, similar to you said, don't isolate. You know, it's so funny when I was going through my dark season, I reached out to 3 or 4 of my closest friends. who I consider my closest friends, and all of them individually all said the same thing to me. They said, Doug, you've been neglecting deep friendships for a long time. And it was basically to your point of, well, I'm busy focused on my purpose. I'm busy changing the world. But I was too busy for the very people that I cared about most. So very, very good. I do want to transition into what you're doing now, helping people write books. But you mentioned this already with Maxwell. You said, man, you're able to really, they say that the riches are in the niches or whatever, and you can really get focused on a singular thing that you're known for. My understanding, just to give people a little bit of background before, is that you were doing coaching, speaking, helping people kind of in all areas of life, which is kind of where I feel like I am now. Like I'm passionate about everything. Yeah. So for me, every time I hear like you have to get narrowed down and get singular focused on a single message, like I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. But you did. And so you wrote a book, and then can you kind of give us context for that? And was that difficult for you, being that you're so passionate about helping people in different areas?
Well, absolutely. Well, let me tell you, first of all, I wasn't niched when I first got into the coaching space. In fact, just like you said, because I know how to do a lot of stuff. So I had a course that taught you how to design a website, how to develop your talk for public speaking, social media marketing, and writing a book. So it was 4 different programs all in one. And I remember people would come up to me and say, well, I only need that one, so I don't think I'm going to get it because I don't really need the other thing. Mind you, it's $500. That's all it costs. It's probably like, what? And so that's when I realized, okay, Taurea, you cannot pitch them all together. So then I came up with the genius plan. Well, I'll pitch them separately. So I'll do separate workshops catered to that one particular transformation, and I'll make my offer. And so for years, probably for about 3 to 4 years, I was offering a public speaking course. I also had a social media course. I had a book writing course. I even had a course where I taught people how to get butts in seats at conferences and workshops. And what would happen, it was so bad that I was selling so many of them, by the way, at very low pricing. And I was stretching myself so thin. People would get on the coaching calls or whatever. And I'm like, okay, now, what course are you enrolled in again? And that's when I realized, like, Taurea, you doing too much. You were doing way too much. So I was literally overworking myself, underpaying myself because I was stretching myself trying to do all these things, right? So in 2019, so this is not too long ago, 2019 is when I had a coach that was like, you need to create the Book Profits Club. Like, he's very good at just throwing out names, right? So Book Profits Club. And I was like, cool. He was like, yeah, you got to teach him how to do this. Now, I don't really do it in the way that he had designed it. But when he said book profits, I thought about, okay, what's some of the biggest challenges that I see with my clients? And they're not knowing how to really leverage the books. I was thinking, okay, once you write the book, you're going to know how to market it like I've been doing, and you go ahead, be gone, right? And they were not having that level of success. And so that's when I was like, okay, Taurea, it's time to stop trying to sell everything and and promote everything. Just pick one. Now, it doesn't mean, though, that once you become a client or you work with me, that I don't provide other opportunities, but I'm building a brand in just the book profiting, if that makes sense. So we still have courses in public speaking. We still have courses, well, not necessarily social media because it changes too much. Like, I couldn't do that, but we still have programs in different areas. And I've also been able to partner with other people. So that's kind of like how the journey started, and then how I got to where I am today as far as the book profiting.
Yeah, and I was saying earlier, I love this. I saw one of your taglines, or at least on one of your profiles, that said you're the queen of book profiting. So I'm like, man, what a brand that is to have. And really, your goal is to help 10,000 authors earn $10,000 a month, a week, or a day. And so can you just pitch people on, one, is that even possible? Like, that sounds like too good to be true for a lot of people, but why should people write a book, and what can it really do for them?
Well, absolutely. So really it's 1,000 authors and 10,000, but guess what? I'm going to receive that because one day I will help.
I read my notes wrong. That's awesome.
12 months time. It shucks. I don't know. You didn't read it wrong. You read it right. I received it. Okay. So,
yes.
So first let's talk about why you should write a book. Number one, being an author has for me been one of the best titles to ever have. Okay. I don't have a lot of titles now. I only went to school one time and got a bachelor's in that. I was done after that. But
I'm with you. Yep.
Right? The only other title that I really have is that of an author for the most part. I mean, coach and things like that, all that stuff. But I have been able to get on many platforms. Matter of fact, I'll give you an example. I'm not a doctor at all, right? I don't have any kind of medical backgrounds, but I did end up writing a book about depression. I learned I don't want to do life coaching, so that's why I don't really push it as much, but I still offer it for people that want to have a copy. So I wrote this book on depression. I gave a copy to a woman who was hosting a conference. In return, she said, "Can you speak on the panel about depression?" Of course I can. So I lie to you not. I'm sitting on this panel, and down the I'm at the end, and it's like 3 to 4 other professionals, doctors, nutritionists, all types of stuff, right? And they're having conversations about depression and chat. I don't know what they're talking about, the chromatology and the nomenology. And I was like, so when she got to me, I was like, listen, y'all, I have to be honest. I don't know those words. I don't even know what any of that is. All I can tell you is I wrote a book about what I did, what I personally felt was going to help me. It made me immediately the influencer of the room. So writing a book makes you an influencer. It gives you that leverage. And the thing is, most people think that you need to write a book linearly. So if I do taxes, I should write a book about taxes. Who wants to read a book about taxes? No, right? But right? But some people do want to know, like, how can I have more money, or what are the secrets that Donald Trump followed so he didn't have to pay any taxes, right? Or, what is it what are the 7 secrets that millionaires do not share when it comes to building their finances? And one of them is they have investments that help them to save on taxes. And so you can talk about in a chapter on taxes, but make 6 other chapters on different topics. Now you can partner with other people as well. There's several books out there. I mean, if you think about one of the most known public personal development books in the world is Think and Grow Rich. That is nothing more than a collaboration book. It's one of the very first collaboration books they ever did, outside of course, the Bible. But Think and Grow Rich is a collaborative book. How do we know? Because Napoleon Hill went and interviewed some of the wealthiest men of that time and found out what principles they followed to have success. Now, he put it into a structured, chaptered book, but there are several people who have been able to create books and bring other experts in. So you should write a book because it builds influence. You should also write a book because it's one of the easiest things to sell. It's also one of the best business cards. There have been times where I'll go sit at some of my favorite restaurants and I have a copy of my book, and ideal client might come in that looks like they got the money to invest and pay in full. And you know what? We have a conversation. I said, I want to give you a copy of my book. I've done that several times. One time I did it at this seafood restaurant. Within 3 days, this man was making a deposit into my book writing program because we connected by me giving him a copy. And so it's just, again, it's such an amazing tool when used right. But the biggest mistake, Doug, that people make when they write their books is they write a book to sell it. See, I never wrote a book because I wanted to sell the book. At the time when I wrote my first book, I was actually still in network marketing. And I was wanting to have a book that I could use to recruit, because there's still a large population of people who do not see the industry as real business. So when I get around those types of people, I don't want to talk to them about multi-level marketing. I want to talk to them about success principles. So when they ask, what do? I say, well, I'm an author. And they say, oh, really? What? Well, I teach people about making 6 figures. How do you do that? And so it leads into conversation, but I never, ever, ever became an author because I wanted to be a bestseller. I wanted to impact more people. And that allowed me to do just that. And so I was able to turn that book into a tool. And then since then, I've been able to help individuals to write books. Now, one of the biggest things that I think since, starting back in 2015, then starting Book Profits Club in 2019, the biggest shift that we have had is not just only helping individuals to be an author, but i.e. the queen of book profiting, to be a profiting author, because the majority of most authors, they're not making any money.
Yeah, let's start on the front end of that. So you're talking to an aspiring author here. I know there's tons of them. And I know your company helps people actually write the books, but where can people start? Should they outsource the writing of their book? Should they do it their own? And you talked a little bit about the collaboration piece. When I heard you talk about that, it was just profound. I'm like, wow, I never thought about writing a book that way. Where should people start, and what's an easy way for them to get a book out?
Well, first, the first thing that you need to do is you got to plan the purpose of your book. And most people never do this. They just say, oh, somebody said I should write a book, so I'm going to write a book. Or one day I want to write a book, so I'm going to write a book. No. You got to plan it out. And what do I mean by that? Visually see, how does this book help you? Because the way that the book will help you will also determine what type of book you write. I have met people who have literally written a book because there's a big conference that takes place annually, and they have a dream to speak at the conference. So they'll literally write a book and then be able to mail it out to all the people who are in charge of this conference, because their goal is to speak at the conference. So you can write a book for a specific goal. You might want to get on the news. There was a guy I met, he teaches NLP. I don't even remember his name. I went to this conference several years ago. It was an NLP conference in LA. And he had a book that was talking about how he was not going to pay for his kids to go to school. Very controversial, right? Because it is automatically assumed, honey, that you need to pay your kids' college tuition. And so what would happen is that he would pitch it to some of these major media outlets. He ended up on CNN because he had this controversial book about how he's not paying for his kids' college tuition, but it technically led into NLP. Hello? And so again, not a linear style book, but something that can create attention. If you want to write a book, maybe to get into schools, maybe you want to speak in front of more schools, then you have to think about that as well. So you first got to plan, right? So those that fail to plan to fail, right? Now, once you have planned it out, this is the easiest part, y'all. It's just creating a foundation. Today, people are Googling how to ... How to, and you fill in the blank. They're literally Googling all different types of stuff. Now, the top 3 areas are going to be love, finances, and wellness, right? Now, you could break those down, right? So, or relationships, shall we say, right? So relationships, finances, and then health and wellness. And so you pick that area where your expertise is in, and then you narrow it down to, how you're going to assist. So when it comes to writing your book should be even centered around how to do something, when to do something, why to do something, where, and how, what, when, where, and why, right? That's what people are looking for. And so you don't have to overcomplicate this book. You might teach people, for example, how to be able to book guests for their podcast. It doesn't even need to be a book on just podcasting. It could be like getting booked or booking people, right? And so you can create 7 chapters on how can you book people for your podcast. Now, let me throw in another little area. So you have your 7 chapters, right, guys? You break that down into 4 to 6. Google will be your best friend because, baby, you can Google anything and you'll get ideas on, okay, chapter 1 should be this. Of course, no copyright infringement, so you're going to make it your own. But chapter 1 could be this, 2, 3, and so on, and then the sub-chapters. Now, what I did in one of my previous books, I decided that for the chapters, I didn't want to write. So I have a technique where I teach people to pre-sell their books. So my goal is to sell 50 books before the book is even written, goes out, or anything. I don't even have a cover typically most of the time. So I pre-sold 50 copies of the book. Everybody who pre-ordered, I also then had them to fill out a form that said, hey, I'm looking for some people to provide their expertise on these 4 different topics. If you're interested and would like to contribute a chapter, go ahead and let me know. And this is the investment cost. And I told them how much it costs up front. It was $497. I had like 10 people that said yes for 4 chapters. So I easily sold. That's another stream of income. Hello. So I easily sold out of those chapters. And guess what? It's at the end of the day, they still say I'm the author.
Yeah. Wow.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's amazing.
Listen, there's so many different ways that you can do this, guys, but you first got to plan it out. And don't overcomplicate this. We are in this world where everybody's trying to one up another person by being more poetic than the other person, being deeper than the other person. And people don't like to pay for deep. People need to be surface level. I need to understand when I look at this book, what are you going to teach me? And if they'll Google it, they will pay for it. So just narrow it down to 1 and let's create a topic about it.
Yeah, and what about the actual writing process? Is that something people should try to outsource?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
How do you help people there?
So, well, we used to actually do a 3-day book camp, but I got so many people that are helping people write books. So I was like, you know what? I don't even want to do that anymore. I'm going to refer that out if you want to go to a publisher. But guys, it's not hard to do. I will literally take my subchapters. Y'all, I hope y'all are taking some notes right now because I will take those subchapters, good, and I turn them into questions. So let's say, for example, one of my chapters is on finding influencers to interview, right? So I might have a subchapter where I talk about search Instagram hashtags, right? So I turn, that's the subchapter. So I say, how can one use Instagram hashtags to find influencers to be in their podcast? And guess what I do? I answer it like it's a real doggone interview, right? And I answer for, now it depends on how you do it. So if you're good at typing, I take about 5 minutes to type it, right? If you're not good at typing, which I'm good at typing too, but I rather just do the voice. You can voice record it, or you could just use a nice little fancy dancy voice recording audio thing and just record your answer like you're literally being interviewed by whoever your most influential. Doug is interviewing
John Maxwell,
guys, right? Yeah, John Maxwell. And
Johnny
how
Mac.
are you going to answer John Maxwell? You're not going to answer one or two sentences. You're going to try to give him the business, right? You want him to be impressed. So you're going to answer it, and then you can take those audios and literally have them transcribed. The last book that I did, which, by the way, I was reading it the other day, the 10K book, is good. I did that in like 4 hours, utilizing this technique of just audio. I don't recommend necessarily for a self-help book to get a ghost writer, only because this is information that you actually teach. And another thing I think is so important is that when people read the book, if they do even read the book, hello, but if they do read it, you want them to say, you know what? I could hear you talking to me. Like my vernacular, I'd say all type of stuff. Child, please. In fact, it's so funny. Me and my editor, we always joke, because when she first came on, she would change my child, which is CHILE, sometimes with multiple I's in the middle. She would change it to child, please. I'm like, girl, that's not how I talk. It's child, please, right? And so we always joke about that. But your book needs to have your personality. You want people to feel like you are talking to them, because that's how you will attract the ideal client. The ideal client is looking for someone that they can trust, that they can feel like can relate to them, but you're able to teach that specific transformation. So you can type it, but voice typing or really audio and then transcribing has been the bomb. A software that you can use to transcribe your audio is called Happy Scribe. Now they have several of them out there. Happy Scribe recently also upgraded, because everybody's trying to stay on top of this AI software that's coming out everywhere. I mean, you've got some of these. Look, one of these softwares many of them can write a book for you, but they don't never really sound like your voice. And so I'm saying, like, use it to help you a little bit, but never use it. But with Happy Scribe, they even have a real live person who will go in and transcribe it. And then you just have someone to go back in and clean it up, not yourself, but just hire someone. Upwork. You could spend $50 to $100, hire someone to just go in and clean it up. And then you go back and review it. And then you have an editor. So it's so easy to do this process.
Yeah. And then your favorite part, helping people profit. So I think a lot of people think of writing the book as the hardest part, but actually when you publish it, you actually have to sell it, get it out there. How can people profit from their books and actually do a great job launching it? And how do you actually help? I would love for you to share about your services.
Oh, absolutely. So we have a program that's actually called Book Profits Club. That's the ultimate goal, to have everybody to be a part of BPC. But the first thing that we like to do is we like you guys to get into profit zone before you even invest $1 with me. Now, where they do that at, I don't know, but I'm just trying to tell you. So we teach you to pre-sell or resell your book. Okay. So if for those of you who are like, well, my book is already out, how can I do this? Guys, John C. Maxwell has done 16 editions of I think it's 16 last time he said, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I don't know if people understand what that means. It means that he's relaunched the book 16 plus times, okay? So y'all, just because you done printed your book that sold to maybe, a nice number of people doesn't mean that you cannot relaunch it. So let's not cut ourselves off from that. But what we do is we pre-sell it. And one of the techniques I teach is when you pre-sell, maybe you say, for the first 50 people, I'm going to mention you in the book. Let me tell you what that does for people, okay? I have some people who have never, ever read my books. But baby, they know exactly what page their name, that's it, their name is listed on. Now imagine if you take it up a notch and you even allow them to maybe leave a quote or give a tip. And now you have people incorporating it. who do these people become? They actually become ambassadors for your book, right? So now you have people who are not only just you promoting, but they're promoting it as well. So the pre-selling is definitely a way to get the word out, but get people excited. Sometimes people are like, Taurea, well, I don't really care about making money with pre-selling it. No, the challenge that most of us have is we're afraid that people won't support the book before it comes out, or we're afraid of what people think about us when the book comes out. If this can help anybody out there, y'all, no matter if you're doing good or bad, people always got an opinion. And if their opinion is not paying your bills, baby, we got to stop letting it affect us. Okay.
Come on. Yeah.
So you start off with the pre-sale, but then you can leverage it into multiple ways. You might want to be able to create a course. So in your book, Lisa Nichols does this incredibly well. Within her introduction, baby, she's going to be telling you in my mastermind program, in this, in that, you're letting people know there's other ways to work with you. We actually have a young lady who wrote a fictional book, right? And it's a grown people's adult fictional book, right? And so we were trying to figure out how can we turn this into multiple streams of income. Well, I said, when you work on the new edition, I want you to make one of the characters have a custom type of silk robe and some furry handcuffs. And so watch me now. And so what you're going to do is you're going to also offer like a middle price kit that comes with the robe, the furry handcuffs, and the book. Hello? So
That's
now
awesome.
people are feeling like they're getting something from the book. Where did I get this from? Harry Potter. Do you remember on the planes back in the days when you would be in the, you could see the magazine?
Yep, 100%.
And it had the Harry Potter section.
Yep. I never thought about that. That's so good.
Multiple streams. Guys, a book can literally become multiple streams. And by the way, a book is kind of like putting you at that space of, now that I have the book, this is what I'm going to prescribe for you next. A doctor. People listen to you. So, and then I told her for her higher ticket type product, like a more expensive bundle kit, it could be like, kind of like grown people, nasty toys, and then the robe and the handcuffs. And so now she's been able to take a book that was fictional and she didn't know how can this become multiple streams. And now she's got 3 streams of income just like that. And so
Shazam. And so as far as what you're doing, how can people connect with you and what you're doing if they're interested in jumping into that club?
Absolutely. So I have a master class, right? So I always like people to get a little taste of me, a little entree appetizer. Okay. And in this master class, I'm going to talk to you about the 3 reasons why I believe that authors never make over $10,000 a year. Also, what do you need to have the right book in place? Like, what's going to help you to have a book that's going to generate over $10,000? The masterclass is only about 15 minutes long, so I don't want to hear any excuses. You don't have time. Everybody has time. So to get access to the masterclass, you're going to go to 10kbook.com. So 10kbook.com, register for the masterclass. You're going to love it. You'll hear some testimonials too, from a few clients, and hopefully we'll connect further from there.
Yeah, I'm going to include links to all of that in the show notes. With the few minutes I have left, I just always like to ask some lightning round questions, just a bunch of fun questions. The first is, what is the best advice you've ever received and who gave it to you?
Whew. Oh my God. Best advice I've ever received. One of my good friends, David Imonitier. I'm always talking to him about just people. And he's always telling me, Taurea, you got to learn to have grace for people as God has given you grace. And so I think that has helped me tremendously in this journey of just collaboration, journey of having clients, journey of friends. And so it helps me to be better and to be a better person overall. So I think that was one of the best pieces of advice.
If you could put a quote on a billboard for everyone to read, what would it say?
A quote for everyone to read? Already got a quote. Okay. People don't remember you for the clothes you wore. They don't remember you for the jewelry you owned or the cars you drove. They only remember you for the impact that you had on their lives.
Wow. If you could spend time with a great leader and don't fangirl out like you did with John Maxwell, and I'm just teasing, but do you have a go-to question or two that you always ask when you meet with someone of influence?
I would say my go-to question when I do sit down with people with influence, is there anything that you wish you could have done over? A lot of times they always say no, but I do like to find out if there's anything that they wish they could have done over. But then also depending upon what kind of level of income they make, what has been the biggest sacrifice that you've had to make on this journey?
Wow. Would you be willing to answer both of those in your journey? Would you answer both of those for you?
Oh, yeah. So one thing that I wish that I could do, see, because I like to keep it real. You know, some people be like, I would never change my journey. Yeah, stop it. Okay. One thing that I wish I could have done, though, is, and this goes back to me telling my story, is to be available for people that loved and cared for me. And even if it was just in a limited amount of time, it didn't mean that they had to be in my life every day or I had to be around them. But even if it's, let me allocate some time. And so I do better at doing that now, even if it's like, I've got some friends where we don't ever talk business. It's like the conversation we have is like guilty pleasure type stuff, but it feels nice just being around people who love me for me. And then the other question would be, oh, what did I say? Oh, sacrifices. Yeah. So the sacrifices is that I can't do everything at all times. So this kind of connects them both. So one thing that I'm very, very good at is every single month, I actually plan ahead based upon what's coming up. So like last month was one of my good friends' birthday. I don't get to see her all the time because I am busy, but I made sure that I was not going to miss her birthday. So for me, in the way of trying to have balance and planning ahead is like every month, okay, this month I might strictly only focus on business, focus on my wellness a little bit more, like be more intentional, and then focus more on, my spiritual life, right? And so every month I actually work on that every single month. And so I've had to make sacrifices, but I make them sacrifices based upon what I'm doing for the upcoming month.
So good. Last question, just open-ended. Is there anything else you want to leave leaders with today?
Let's see. Oh, yes. This is what I am going to say. Stop being addicted to your own labor. Guys, in fact, one pastor, his name is Dr. Miles Monroe. I'm sure many have heard of him. He's an amazing, amazing pastor and business coach. He said that God has given us so many gifts. He gives us a lot of different gifts, but you can get wealthy off of just using one. And, when you hear the word follow one course until successful, it's funny when I look at some of these interviews on YouTube where they ask the man, how did you make this much money? Like they're riding in these expensive cars. How did you make this money? And they go in to interview them. All of them always say, focus on one thing, get that business to, I've even had some tell me to 7 figures. And then you can branch out. Now, it doesn't mean you can't build multiple streams within one business. But guys, let's stop being addicted to our own labor. Focus, 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 and focus again.
Taurea, this has been awesome. You exceeded expectations. Thank you for that. Thank you for everything that you do to help get people's message out in the world and profit from it. That's the big part.
Yes.
So, and hopefully we'll do this again sometime.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.